It's an island foodscape takeover. If anybody asks, we call it permaculture. Planting seeds, we secure our family's future. What you give is what you got from the roots on up. What you give is what you got from the roots on up. What you give is what you got from the roots on up. Yeah. We're all seeds of love, planted in your garden. We're all seeds of love, yes. Planted in your garden, we're all seeds of...
Aloha, Dash Kuhr here with HIP Agriculture, and I'm here with Bobby Grimes, Master Compost Builder, and Sebastian, a former high school intern on the farm. And we're super excited to share today about compost building and how to create soil fertility on your land or in your garden.
These times, yes, yeah. Plant a seed, watch it grow, and let
So you've been building compost for years. I mean, what do you love about building compost, and why do you do it?
Well, I started with organic gardening, and I wanted to increase my fertility and increase the carbon in my soils. And so I got interested in composting, took a few classes, and began making my own, what they call kind of boutique compost piles, what we're going to be doing today, versus a bigger commercial system. So I look for, what do I have around on my farm that I can incorporate? And for me, coming from a biodynamic perspective, which is where I'm coming from, the act of composting is an act of resurrection. So I'm taking this material that's come off of a living tree, now it's in its death and decay process, and I'm going to weave it together and bring it to the edge of living again.
We're creating this ideal environment where we can cultivate a large amount of microorganisms that we're then going to spread around the farm. So it's more about creating this pile of like inoculant that we're going to use again to kind of dose all of our gardens, increase microorganisms, and thereby increase uptake of plant nutrients into the plant.
Exactly what you're saying. And spreading the microbes around the farm and using this as an incubator and a condenser, if you will, so that we can take these little pieces and put it around for each plant. We only need a little bit of compost in order to achieve our goal of adding these microbes, and then they take these minerals and make them more bioavailable for the plant. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and the farmer is somewhat of a conductor bringing the symphony together, and it's going to get warm, and there's going to be other processes, there's going to be off-gassing, and then we've created something that is of high value, and we've also cleaned up some of our resources.
A lot of people might be working with degraded soils. I mean, this land had sugarcane on it at one point and was bulldozed. All the topsoil was bulldozed into the gulches, and so we lost that top soil layer that had all the microbes in it. And so when we're building compost, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you want to improve soil fertility, add organic matter. Pretty much no matter what, right, we're going to be increasing organic matter into the system. And so that question in building your compost or increasing fertility on your land is, what organic matter do you have access to? Sebastian, you've been gardening at home, and when I say add organic matter, I mean, what are some of the resources you've been able to identify down in Kona?
Oh, you put about anything in your soil, from leaves from the tree to branches. And what you're trying to achieve is a balance of nitrogen and carbon. I feel that composting is often overcomplicated. Farming is all about feeding the land, feeding the people, and composting, it's food for the land. A tree feeds itself, and the leaf litter underneath the tree is the compost. And so what we're doing on a large scale is we're creating accessible, living food for the tree. Now we're going to take you through the process of making your own compost pile, step by step.
There's basically two main components we're going to be adding into the compost, which is going to be our carbon materials and then our nitrogen materials. Then think about your carbon materials as all of your browns, and your nitrogens as all of your greens, except that animal manures are nitrogen. It's almost like we're making a cake, right? We're going to do the different layers of a cake, and we're going to layer carbon and we're going to layer nitrogen. Depending on your bioregion, what carbon can you access? If you're in a place with a lot of leaf litter, it's going to be leaves. And you could think of any brown material that you can access in your region is going to be really the building block of your pile.
My name's Kegan. I work at the Dragonheart farm. We're located just outside Hawai'i town, and we put a lot of focus on soil building, making local fertilizers, and composting. Composting is important because it utilizes waste products, and not only does it add fertility to the soil, but it also acts as a soil amendment, so it breaks up our clay type soil in Hawaii, which is really necessary to grow really nice crops. You can just see the fertility, you can see the life, and it's just a great way to be able to hold that nutrition for your plants so they can tap into it.
For organic pest control, the soil health is really the most important thing. So minimal tillage and adding lots of organic material into your soil is going to help your plant fight off any diseases or pests.
All right, now we're gonna take a look and discuss some of the nitrogen-based materials that we're gonna add to the pile.
Sounds good. Let's take a look at this horse manure that we've got here. So one of the things that's going to help feed the microorganisms and generate this composting process is going to be nitrogen. And we have very little nitrogen, if any at all, in this pile of carbon. So we come over here and we've got the horse manure, which has a much higher nitrogen content, which we're going to add into our pile to achieve the ratio we'd mentioned, somewhere around 15 to 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen.
It's the observation of patterns and flows.
Let's go take a look at some of the other nitrogen sources that we selected for today.
Any green material is going to be your nitrogen source for your compost pile. Here we have a pile of banana leaves that we just harvested, and we're also going to go collect right now some other leaves from different shrubs and bushes around the farm that we can incorporate into this pile. So this is Glircidia, or Madre de Cacao, and this is a nitrogen fixing tree that we use to put more nitrogen into the soil. Not only does it put nitrogen in the soil, but it's also very nitrogen rich in these green leaves. So we're gonna harvest this material for our compost pile. But again, any green material you're gonna be able to incorporate into the pile. I don't want like really woody branches, but these are soft enough that these are gonna break down quickly.
Where I've gone, a home will surely be. This is life here. This is life here.
And now we're gonna build our compost pile. We like to do kind of a, sometimes we call it a lasagna pile, or when I'm instructing school children, I like to say we're gonna make a cake with a bunch of layers. We're essentially gonna layer the carbon material with the nitrogen, and then we're gonna add a little sprinkling of finished compost to inoculate that with microorganisms, and we're gonna repeat that process of layering carbon and nitrogen, sprinkling microorganisms, and repeat.
So we're going to start the bottom of our pile with some dry sticks just to give it a little bit of lift, so when the wind blows, there's always a little bit of room down there for the oxygen to come in and the heavier carbon dioxide to move out. We're allowing our pile to have the opportunity to really breathe during inclement weather where we might get rains for weeks on end. With some banana leaves, we start with Glircidia, I think, maybe because it's more woody.
Yep.
I like to go with the woodier, stiffer things that are a little more bulky near the bottom of my, so it's more of a foundation, and the lighter things as I go up the pile. Kind of don't get them too clumped up so that we get some air in the process. We don't want them to be like we're building a house. We're more building a cake.
All right, so now we're gonna add some carbon to the pile. This is some finished compost from another pile. So I know that this finished compost is packed full of microorganisms, right? Beneficial bacteria, fungi, protozoas, nematodes, amoebas. And so I'm just gonna do a little sprinkling over the top and keep adding this throughout in all these different layers. And this is gonna help jumpstart the compost pile and again, kick off those biological processes. So we like to water the compost pile as we're building it because we want to get all of that surface area covered and moist. It's really hard to saturate the pile with enough moisture once the pile's already been built. You're not going to get the water to the center of the pile. So again, it's really nice as we're building and layering that you can just kind of keep moistening it. So even though this material is brown, this cow manure would be considered one of your nitrogen sources. It blows my mind how much compostable materials are going into our landfills. It's about 40% of the landfill is getting filled with materials that could actually build fertility on the land. What we do is we compost all of our kitchen scraps and keep that fertility on the farm. Don't send it to the landfill. All right, well, we got a beautiful compost pile behind us that we built, all with materials right here from this Āina. Again, you can create your own soil fertility in your backyard, sourcing materials from your zone. So happy compost building.